I'm Jeff Baldwin with First Section, here with another in our series of artillery instructional videos.
Fire!
Today we're going to be covering the loading and the firing of the piece according to the manual Instruction for Field Artillery as adopted by the War Department in 1860. These same instructions were repackaged and reprinted under a variety of different titles and authors a number of times throughout the 1860s in both the North and the South. While many of these subsequent printings reorganized topics or omitted certain sections, the actual instructional content is identical. The instructions on loading, firing, and maneuvering are the same, whether you're looking at an 1860 U.S. Army manual printed in Philadelphia or an 1864 version printed in Richmond. First, let's take a second to look at what makes up an 1860s field artillery platoon. All of the men assigned to the service of a single artillery piece constitute one platoon, ideally 16 men. One of those men is a sergeant, the chief of the piece. He's in charge. The remaining men are divided into two detachments, a detachment of drivers, we'll look at them in another video, and a detachment of cannoneers. Two of those cannoneers are corporals, a gunner who commands the cannoneers and sights the piece, and a chief of caisson who, as the name suggests, manages the ammunition on the caisson. Then we have 7 cannoneers who are identified by numbers.
Halt! Fire to the rear, in battery. Commence firing.
Fire to the rear. Drive on! When the piece is unlimbered and ready for action, the cannoneers take their posts around the gun. Number 1 and 3 on the right, 2 and 4 on the left. The gunner at the end of the trail spike, 5 next to the lead team, 6 and 7 behind the limber. Number 8 is on the left, a little further back. Typically, during firing, the chief of piece dismounts and gives the reins of his horse to the driver of the wheel horses of the limber.
Load, shell, 3.5 second fuse. Ready! Fire!
Now, let's go through the entire loading and firing process.
Load, canister!
The gunner gives his detachment the command load, along with the type of round to be fired. Number 5 runs back to the limber and receives from number 6 or 7 a single round and then delivers it back to the gun. While the round is being prepared, the gunner takes hold of the handspike and immediately begins pointing the piece. Stepping to the breech, he places a Haas on its seat and sights the gun. Up front, number 1 sponges out the piece. As he does this, number 3 has stepped in to tend the vent, keeping his thumb closing the vent airtight to assist in extinguishing the remains of any cartridge material that may still be in the bore. The wartime publication Customs of Service clarifies that he should not remove his thumb from the vent until every cannoneer is clear of the piece. Bringing up the round, number 5 holds open the pouch, and number 2 takes out the round with both hands. He then places it into the muzzle, taking care that the seam of the cartridge does not come under the vent. Number 1 then rams until the cartridge is set home. Three then jumps to the end of the trail handspike and, seizing it with both hands, prepares to move it to the right or left on a signal from the gunner. The gunner taps the right of the trail for a movement to the left and the left of the trail for a movement to the right. The gunner also adjusts the elevation. As soon as the piece is pointed, the gunner raises both hands as a signal to number 3, who then resumes his position on the right. The gunner then gives the command, "Ready!" 1, now facing the piece, breaks off well to his left with the left foot, bending the left knee and straightening the right leg, drops the end of the sponge staff into the left hand, back of the hand down, and fixes his eyes on the muzzle. Number 2 breaks to the rear with the opposite leg. 3 steps back in and pricks the cartridge, taking care not to move the charge. Then, number 4 puts a friction primer attached to the lanyard into the vent. Number 4 takes the lanyard in his right hand, moves to the rear so far as to keep the lanyard slack but capable of being stretched, without altering his position, which should be clear of the wheel, left foot broken to the left and rear. When the gunner gives the command to fire, number 3 steps out. Number 4 observes that every man is clear and then pulls the lanyard briskly and firmly, passing his hand back up in a downward direction to the rear, so as to keep the lanyard hook from flying back in the direction of his face. The process immediately begins again until the command "cease fire" is given.
Ready! Number 2, fire!
Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the field.